Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. If you point a laser at an airplane in the United States, you can be sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined $250,000. An episode of Peppa Pig had to be banned in Australia because it showed Peppa being friendly with spiders, which was considered dangerous since spiders in Australia can be very venomous. Dark roasted coffee, despite appearing stronger, actually contains less caffeine than lighter roasted versions. It has been observed that orcas that spend a lot of time interacting with dolphins use more dolphin-like sounds, such as whistles and clicks, to the point that their language becomes completely mixed. In China, paper airplanes were already being made more than 2,000 years ago. Of course, at that time they were not called that. They were known as origami birds, and people had fun throwing them. It is estimated that there are $1.8 quadrillion in physical cash circulating on planet Earth, and the amount that exists only digitally is much larger than that. It is possible to hear the heartbeat of a blue whale from up to 1.9 miles away. In less than 70 million years, Mars's moon Phobos will move so close to the surface of the red planet that it will be destroyed by the force of its motion, giving Mars a ring similar to those of other planets such as Saturn. In Inca mythology, there is a goddess of potatoes. Potatoes formed a vital part of the Inca food supply, with many varieties of different flavors and colors. And in each village, they would often keep potatoes with particular shapes to worship and ask for a good harvest. The sternalis muscle is so rare that fewer than 8% of humans have it. This muscle is considered an anatomical variation, since it has no clear function and is not essential for most people. It is believed to be an evolutionary vestige that, in some cases, can be confused with the pectoral muscle or part of the abdominal muscles. Crocodiles cannot stick out their tongues to show their displeasure towards someone, but they do not worry about it because they solve everything by talking like people. In reality, their tongue is fixed to the bottom of the mouth by a membrane that prevents it from moving freely, an adaptation that helps keep water from entering the throat when they hunt underwater. Lemons are a mixture of oranges and grapefruits created by humans thousands and thousands of years ago. Genetic studies indicate that the modern lemon emerged from the cross between the bitter orange and the citron, another ancient citrus fruit cultivated in Asia. Over time, farmers spread this fruit throughout the Mediterranean and later across the rest of the world. Beans, corn, cauliflower, cabbage, and milk are the 5 foods most likely to cause flatulence. This happens because they contain sugars or fibers that the human digestive system cannot always break down completely. When these compounds reach the large intestine, bacteria ferment them and produce gases as part of the digestive process. There are more than 50,000 edible plants in the world. However, only 3 seeds, rice, wheat, and corn, make up 60% of all the plants we eat. These 3 agricultural bases support much of human food consumption and also livestock production, which means many modern diets depend heavily on very few crops. Surprisingly, the human brain, the universe, and the internet have similar network patterns and the same growth dynamics. That is really cool. Studies have compared the structure of neural connections with the distribution of galaxies and digital network links, finding similarities in how they are organized and expand. Although they function on completely different scales, these coincidences have sparked great interest in science in understanding common principles of complex organization. Potatoes absorb and reflect radio wave signals in the same way human bodies do. Because of this, engineers have used them in the past to test and improve Wi-Fi signals on airplanes. Useful and delicious. According to a study conducted in 2012, people who complain live longer, by about 2 years. This is because by complaining, they release their tension, which increases their immunity and improves their health. It is hot in here. I am tired and I need a drink. Oh, I have one right here. In the small town of El Valle de Anton, Panama, trees grow that have square trunks. It is believed that this strange anomaly of nature does not occur anywhere else in the world. In fact, experts from the University of Florida took some tree seedlings to see if they would retain their rectangular shape if planted elsewhere in the world. And they did not. When planted in other places, the trees had normal circular trunks. Fat Man was the code name of the atomic bomb that was detonated over the Japanese city of Nagasaki by the United States on August 9, 1945. It was a plutonium device with a much more complex implosion design than the other bomb used in the war. and its detonation caused massive devastation. This event, along with a previous attack, marked the end of World War II just days later. There is a plant called Psychotria elata that has flowers known as the hot lips flower. It grows in Central and South America and is used as a medicinal plant to treat certain ailments, such as ear pain. It is also called flaming lips. The red part is actually leaves that look that way for a short time before giving way to the flower buds. More bacteria can develop in a neatly made bed with tightly stretched sheets than in an unmade bed. This is because when sheets are uncovered, they are exposed to more air and do not retain heat or moisture, making it harder for bacteria to reproduce. During a period of famine in Germany, it was observed that sick children recovered when wheat was scarce, and when it became available again, they fell ill once more. This helped lead to the discovery of celiac disease, which is the negative reaction that occurs when consuming gluten, something that affects many people. Many toothpastes contain small pieces of plastic that are purely decorative. These can become lodged in the gums and are also believed to be pollutants for the environment. The sun is the most perfect sphere observed in nature. Other examples of natural spheres are bubbles, water droplets, and atoms. There is a 16-story building in Osaka, Japan, through which a highway passes on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. When the highway was being built, an agreement could not be reached over acquiring the land, and the owners wanted to build the building, so an arrangement was made to construct both. Panama hats are actually made in Ecuador, not Panama. They are traditionally made from fibers of the toquilla plant, hand-woven by Ecuadorian artisans. The name became popular because they were exported through Panama during the construction of the canal, where they gained international fame after being worn by workers and visitors. The Ben Franklin effect is a psychological phenomenon in which someone who has done a favor for another person is more likely to do another favor for that person than if they had received a favor from them. This behavior is explained because people tend to justify their actions by aligning their attitudes with what they have already done, reinforcing a positive perception toward the person they helped. The name comes from Benjamin Franklin, who described this strategy in his writings. The statue of Nikola Tesla in Silicon Valley provides free Wi-Fi for people nearby. The monument is located in the city of Palo Alto and was funded in part by donations on the internet. In addition to offering public wireless connection, inside the base of the statue there is also a time capsule with objects and messages that are planned to be opened in several decades. It also rains in deserts, and often with considerable effects. A record of 1.7 inches of rain in just 3 hours was once recorded in the Sahara Desert. This excess water forms channels where it flows rapidly, making it dangerous for people who may be walking nearby. After the movie Snakes on a Plane was filmed, actor Samuel L. Jackson learned that they wanted to change the title, so he immediately forbade it, arguing that the ridiculous name was the only reason he agreed to be in the film. It is now considered a cult classic. Honeybees have 5 eyes, 2 compound eyes that help them see around them simultaneously, and 3 simple eyes positioned on the top of their heads to assist with orientation. The simple eyes, called ocelli, detect changes in light and help stabilize flight, while the compound eyes can perceive ultraviolet patterns, allowing them to locate flowers with great precision. Crows are one of the smartest animals on Earth. In fact, they try to hide their food from each other, but they only sometimes succeed because they are all very intelligent. Studies have shown that they can plan for the future, recognize human faces, and even deceive other crows by pretending to hide food in one place while actually storing it in another, showing surprisingly complex behaviors. Cats do not understand punishment. To train them, they should be rewarded and praised when they behave well. Or maybe they do understand it, but make us believe they do not, so that we treat them well, and little by little, they gain more power until they dominate the world. When Ocakli Ada Castle in Istanbul, Turkey, which is more than 2,000 years old, was restored, it became the subject of ridicule on social media due to its resemblance to SpongeBob or Bart Simpson. It is at least the 3rd time it has been repaired in its history, previously by the Byzantines and by the Ottomans. The ginkgo biloba tree is considered a living fossil. Fossils of this species more than 290 million years old have been found, and it has barely changed since then. All other species of its class and of the ginkgo genus have long been extinct. Gasoline, kerosene, benzene, and turpentine were used to treat head lice. References to this appear in medical journals since 1917. These methods were dangerous and could cause irritation or poisoning, So over time, they were replaced by safer and more effective treatments. Today, there are specific approved products that eliminate lice without putting health at risk. Vikings never wore horned helmets. The only helmet discovered from Viking heritage shows a rounded iron cap and no horns at all. The image of horned helmets became popular much later, especially in the 19th century, through artistic representations in operas that aimed to make them look more imposing. In reality, that type of decoration would have been impractical in combat and has no archaeological support. In 2004, Volvo presented a prototype called Volvo YCC that was designed by women for women. It had no hood, and the bumpers were resistant to scratches. The model also included solutions intended to reduce maintenance, such as a system that automatically notified when the car needed to be taken in for service, and more practical compartments inside the vehicle. There is a theory that cats hate water because they can detect all the chemicals in tap water that reaches homes with the help of their highly sensitive noses, preferring natural water from rivers, lakes, or the sea. But not everyone accepts this theory, since there may be other reasons related to their evolution. In 1981, 8 of the 10 highest-grossing movies were original stories. Today, only 1 out of 10 is an original story, and not a sequel or remake. In the late 1990s, there was a television show in Russia called The Interception, in which contestants had to steal a car. If they succeeded without being caught by the police and in less than 35 minutes, they were given the car. But if they failed, they were arrested. When the minimum wage first became law in the United States in 1938, it was 25 cents per hour. Adjusted for current inflation, that amount is approximately equivalent to between $5 and $6 per hour. In Norway, the use of cash has declined to minimal levels, with only a small fraction of transactions being made with physical money. Although it was once thought that the country could become completely cashless by 2020, in practice, this did not fully happen. However, Norway remains one of the most advanced places in the world for digital payments, where cards and mobile apps almost completely dominate everyday life. The Pokemon Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan are based on Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, respectively. Their English names make direct reference to these martial artists. Hitmonlee refers to Bruce Lee, and Hitmonchan refers to Jackie Chan. Both Pokemon appeared from the first generation of the series and represent different fighting styles, one focused on kicks and the other inspired by boxing. William Wrigley Jr. started by selling soap and offered baking powder as an incentive to buy it. When he discovered that baking powder was more popular, he switched to selling it instead and gave chewing gum to his customers as an incentive. And the same thing happened. Chewing gum was more popular, so he dedicated himself to selling it and soon founded the Wrigley Company. Out of the 206 bones in the human body, 52 are in the feet, 26 in each foot. Washing your hands with hot water does not remove more bacteria than washing them with cold water, as some people believe. Water temperature only destroys bacteria when it reaches the boiling point. Actor Tommy Lee Jones and Vice President Al Gore were roommates during their freshman year at Harvard. Both studied at Harvard University, and although they took very different paths, they shared that stage of university life at the beginning of their careers, something many consider a curious coincidence. The Carrot House in Warsaw is the narrowest house in the world, measuring only 36 inches at its narrowest point and 60 inches at its widest. It was designed as a habitable art installation and is inserted between 2 buildings, making use of an almost impossible space. Despite its size, it has the essentials for living, distributed across very compact levels. Chimpanzees in West Africa have entered their own Stone Age. They have begun using stone tools for several generations. For example, they use rocks as hammers and anvils to break hard nuts, and researchers believe that some of these tool traditions have been culturally transmitted among groups for hundreds of years. The reason why at the beginning of the U2 song Vertigo, the vocalist Bono says 1, 2, 3, 14 has been analyzed by fans who have theorized things such as it referring to a passage from the Bible, the numbers of North Korean bombs, or even computer science formulas. When Bono himself was asked, he said it was just improvisation. However, years later it was discovered that it was probably a tribute to actor John Ritter, since he mentions those numbers in an episode of the series Three's Company while testing a microphone. If you soak potatoes in hydrogen peroxide and leave them for a while, the peroxide will turn into H2O, water ready to drink. But I do not recommend trying it. In Belgium, voting is mandatory, and citizens are automatically registered to do so. More than 90% of the population goes to vote to avoid fines. In Tennessee, there is a law that prohibits the sale of bologna on Sundays. This curiosity comes from old laws known as blue laws, which regulated commercial activities on holidays or religious days. Although many of these rules have been modified or eliminated over time, some unusual provisions have remained or are cited as part of the state's legal tradition. Lobsters have a really strange anatomy. Their brains are in their throats, their nervous systems in their abdomens, their teeth in their stomachs, and their kidneys in their heads. Try to figure that out. It is like a glitch in nature. These adaptations allow them to process tough food and survive in demanding marine environments. In the International Mathematical Olympiad, there have only been 2 recorded cases of competitors cheating. On both occasions, they turned out to be contestants from North Korea. In both cases, the students were disqualified after judges detected that their solutions matched material that had been leaked before the exam, which led to stricter reviews of the competition security process. When United Kingdom Prime Minister Winston Churchill visited the United States during alcohol prohibition, his doctor wrote him a prescription stating that he required indefinite quantities of alcoholic beverages. In the movie The Matrix, Neo's passport expires on September 11, 2001. That is scary. This detail has caught the attention of many fans over time, as it coincides with a date that would later become tragically significant in real history, although it is simply a coincidence within the film's prop design. It is impossible to breathe while smiling. This is obviously not true, but I wanted to make you smile. Planet Earth has lost 40% of its wildlife over the last 40 years, according to the Worldwide Fund for Nature. This estimate comes from the Living Planet Index, which analyzes thousands of vertebrate populations and shows how habitat loss, hunting, and climate change have drastically reduced many species. Traveling Wilburys was a supergroup made up of musicians Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Jeff Lynne, Roy Orbison, and Tom Petty, who came together to play almost casually. They recorded their first album in only 10 days, and later, when they released their second album, they titled it Volume 3 as a joke. They skipped number 2. If you chew gum while cutting onions, you can prevent your eyes from watering, and rubbing your hands on stainless steel can help remove the smell. In early versions of the script for the movie Star Wars, some stormtroopers carried lightsabers, and there were also female stormtroopers, but this was quickly discarded. These ideas were later revisited in the 2015 movie The Force Awakens with the character Captain Phasma. On July 16, 1935, the first parking meter in the world, known as the parkometer, was installed on the southeast corner of what was then 1st Street and Robinson Avenue in Oklahoma City. Albert Einstein used to charge $1 for each autograph he signed. He used this money to donate to charity. The hydrogen contained in the core of the planet Saturn is so dense that it becomes metal. It is believed that metallic hydrogen could exist as a liquid rather than a solid under high temperature conditions. Scientists have attempted to create it on planet Earth many times, but have not succeeded. Scotland is closer to the North Pole than Alaska, even though it appears otherwise. The first drinking straw was designed to have a diameter smaller than a lemon seed. Its inventor was tired of swallowing seeds while drinking lemonade. In 2013, a man got a tattoo with the word Netflix and tweeted it to the company. Shortly afterward, they replied and gave him 1 year of service. The first St. Patrick's Day parade in New York was held on March 17, 1762. It was organized by Irish soldiers serving in the British Army, who marched to celebrate their roots and traditions. Over time, this event grew into one of the largest and oldest parades in the world, attracting millions of people each year. There is an underground pipeline system in the United Kingdom that connects different cities. It was built during the Second World War to safely transport aviation fuel throughout the country, avoiding the risks of moving it by road and rail. It is still used today, mainly to supply commercial aviation. The only reason King Tutankhamun of Egypt is so well known today is because, as a relatively unimportant pharaoh, his tomb was not looted by thieves. Everything remained intact until it was discovered by archaeologists. Liquid tungsten is so hot that if you poured it into a river of lava, the lava would freeze the tungsten. That means it would solidify this metal. On March 13, 1781, astronomer William Herschel discovered the planet Uranus. It was the first discovery made in modern times, and also the first to be made using a telescope. Isaac Newton was the first person to propose that planet Earth was not a perfect sphere. It is an oblate spheroid, flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. From the center of the Earth, sea level is approximately 13 miles higher at the equator than at the poles. Praying mantises can rotate their heads 180 degrees. They use this ability to scan their surroundings using two large compound eyes and three additional simple eyes located between them. During job interviews, Google does not ask for grade point averages or test scores from candidates because they do not correlate at all with success at the company. Over time, the company has prioritized skills such as problem solving, critical thinking, and adaptability, considering that these factors better predict performance in dynamic environments than traditional academic results. Lady Gaga wrote the song Born This Way in only 10 minutes. The singer has said in interviews that the main idea and basic structure of the song came very quickly while she was working in the studio. Later, as usually happens in music production, the song was refined with arrangements, recordings, and production until it became the single that topped charts in several countries. Descending from Mount Everest after reaching the summit takes approximately 3 days and can be even more dangerous than the ascent. Some people have descended by paraglider or wingsuit, but that is no longer allowed unless they obtain a special permit. In the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil, large outdoor advertising, including billboards, was banned. More than 300,000 were removed. After their removal, neglected and dirty areas of the city that had been hidden behind advertisements were revealed. Despite being only a cosmetic detail, cockroaches in the video game Half-Life have artificial intelligence that makes them search for food and react to different creatures and environments. There is a waterfall called the Devil's Kettle that flows into a hole, and it has still not been discovered where all that water goes. Despite the First World War having ended more than 100 years ago, in France, more than approximately 992 short tons of unexploded ammunition are still recovered each year in regions where battles took place. In Texas, it is against the law for any person to have a pair of pliers in their possession. Lake Kivu, located in Rwanda, is one of only 3 known lakes in the world capable of a limnic eruption, which are events where carbon dioxide is suddenly released, killing all animals and people nearby. It is believed this occurs every 1,000 years. More than 2 million people currently live near this lake. The state sport of Maryland is jousting. It became its official sport in 1962 and has been practiced there since colonial times. In 1950, almost the entire Soviet hockey team died in a plane crash. The team's manager was Vasily Stalin, the son of Joseph Stalin. He feared his father's reaction to the accident and immediately recruited a whole new team. Surprisingly, his father never noticed the difference. In 2005, Kate Winslet joked that acting in a movie about the Holocaust guaranteed winning an Oscar. 4 years later, she won her first and only Oscar for her role in The Reader, a movie that dealt with that very subject. Titanic Lifeboat Number 1, which had the capacity to carry more than 40 people, was lowered into the sea with only 12 occupants, mainly first-class passengers, while the ship was sinking, and later they refused to return to look for survivors. This was one of the 20 lifeboats the ship had, which, even if filled, would not have been enough to save everyone on board. Soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo paid for the education of a 7-year-old boy who was found after the tsunami in Indonesia wandering alone wearing a Portugal national team shirt. Years later, that boy became a player for Sporting Lisbon. More than 3,000 years ago, before any method existed to observe microorganisms, the Roman scholar Marcus Varro described bacteria by stating that they were tiny creatures that enter the body through the mouth or nose and cause disease. More than 1,500 years had to pass before his theory was finally confirmed. There is an island in Brazil that has not been touched by humans because it is covered with deadly snakes. Ilha de Queimada Grande, or Snake Island, has up to 5 golden lancehead snakes per square meter. The golden lancehead is responsible for 90% of snakebite-related deaths in Brazil. The snakes are so dangerous that the Navy has prohibited anyone from landing there. Ninjas did not actually wear black. According to museums dedicated to ninjas in Japan, the best color to wear at night was actually dark navy blue. This is because pure black stands out more under low light, while darker tones like blue or gray blend better with natural shadows, making stealth easier during their missions. All humans were, at some point, a single cell, at least for about half an hour. That moment occurs just after fertilization, when the egg and the sperm merge to form a single cell called a zygote. From there, a process of rapid cell division begins that, within a matter of days, produces hundreds and then thousands of cells that will form the embryo. At the Milan City Hall Christmas party in Italy in 2013, Roberto Casago, one of the council officials, opened a bottle of sparkling wine, and the cork that flew out made a hole in an 18th century painting that was there. When experts came to assess the damage, someone had tried to repair it with adhesive tape. The toothpaste and toothbrush company Colgate once attempted to extend its brand to frozen foods, although it never actually launched them. Antarctica has no reptiles. Reptiles need heat to keep their bodies functioning, so they cannot survive in severe and prolonged cold temperatures. They would literally freeze solid. Unlike mammals or birds, they cannot regulate their internal temperature, so they depend on the environment. Even in nearby regions, their presence is almost non-existent, since extreme cold completely limits their survival. The Tetris effect refers to when a person dedicates so much time and attention to an activity that it causes them to form patterns in their thoughts, as well as mental images and dreams. This often happens to people who play too many video games such as Tetris. At the age of 15, Anne Makasinski managed to invent a flashlight that works solely on the body heat of the hand. She later created a headlamp that also runs on body heat. Her invention uses thermoelectric modules that convert the temperature difference between the skin and the air into energy, a solution designed especially for communities without reliable access to electricity. A polar bear can eat the equivalent of what 86 penguins eat. These large Arctic predators require enormous amounts of energy to survive in extreme climates, so they can consume dozens of pounds of meat in a single meal. In the wild, their main prey is seals, which provide the fat needed to maintain their body temperature. The Panama Canal was initially going to be built in Nicaragua, but the plans were abandoned because the route passed near active volcanoes, and there was a shorter route in Panama. There have been new discussions about building a canal where it was originally planned, but they have not been carried out. If you took all the molecules in a spoonful of water and aligned them in a straight line, something that is only theoretically possible, that line would measure more than 29.8 billion miles. The immense popularity of Dragon Ball in Mexico once caused a diplomatic issue between Mexico and Japan when public viewing events were held with giant screens showing the latest episodes of Dragon Ball Super with government support. Japan had to send a formal letter requesting that the episodes not be shown, but they were shown anyway. Red pandas use their long, bushy tails to maintain balance when they are in trees. Their tails are also used to cover themselves and stay warm in the winter. In addition, they wrap them around their bodies while sleeping to conserve heat in the cold mountain climates where they live, and they also use them as extra support when moving along narrow branches. There is an underwater museum off the coast of the Spanish island of Lanzarote called Museo Atlántico. It contains sculptures by British artist Jason de Caris Taylor and represents our changing and sometimes destructive role in the modern world. There is a store in Canada called Child's Own Studio, where children's drawings are turned into real fabric toys, including all their details. The country of India recognizes dolphins as non-human persons and is one of 4 countries where the import and export of cetaceans, such as whales or narwhals for entertainment purposes, is prohibited. During his explorations in India, Alexander the Great encountered an isolated tribe that had not yet discovered how to make fire. In Japan, only beverages that contain 100% fruit juice can show a cut fruit on the label. If they contain less than 95% juice, they may show a whole fruit, and those with less than 5% cannot show any fruit on the label. Bamboo flowers are rarely seen. Some species can develop flowers after 65 to 120 years, but the most fascinating part is that if they bloom, all the plants of that same bamboo species will develop flowers at the same time, no matter where in the world they are located. Alfred Nobel invented dynamite, something that later troubled him greatly. He did not want that to be his legacy, so he used his fortune to create an event that celebrated humanity. That is how the Nobel Prize was created. The Toy Story character Woody has a last name that most people do not know. His full name is Woody Pride. Pride means pride. There is an alarm clock called Clocky that has wheels and rolls away when it starts ringing, forcing you to get out of bed to turn it off. There is also an extreme alarm that requires you to shoot at a target to silence it. Greek statues are not actually white as we once thought. Ultraviolet light has revealed that they were originally painted in bright colors, But after thousands of years, the paint wore away to show the statues as we know them today. All accessible bathrooms in the United Kingdom use the same key, and all disabled people in that country have a copy of that key. The system is known as the radar key, and it is used to control access to thousands of adapted restrooms in public spaces. The idea is to prevent misuse of these facilities and ensure that they are available when people with disabilities actually need them. They are called zombie fires or persistent fires when they remain buried and active throughout the winter, even when they were thought to be extinguished, feeding on organic matter in the soil and then reactivate in the spring and emerge to the surface. There is evidence that gladiators in the Roman Empire promoted products from their sponsors, just like athletes do today. Sushi is actually meant to be eaten with your hands, and sashimi with chopsticks. In Japanese tradition, eating sushi with your hands is completely acceptable, especially pieces like nigiri, since it makes it easier to handle the rice without it falling apart. In addition, you are supposed to lightly dip the fish in soy sauce, not the rice, to prevent it from breaking apart and to better preserve the flavor. Instead of its gross domestic product, Bhutan measures its development and prosperity by its gross national happiness. It has been doing so since 1971 and is the only country that does it. This approach considers factors such as psychological well-being, culture, the environment, and quality of life, seeking a balance between economic growth and the happiness of the population rather than focusing solely on financial indicators. The flag of Nepal is so complicated that the constitution of that country includes a 24-step guide on how to create it. It is the only national flag in the world that does not have a rectangular shape, and it is composed of two overlapping triangles that represent the Himalaya mountains and two traditional celestial symbols of the country. The banister effect is a phenomenon that occurs when someone achieves something that previously seemed impossible, and after that, many other people also accomplish it, being considered mainly a mental barrier. An example of this was when Tony Hawk landed the 900 trick in skateboarding. It was called the impossible trick. After this, more than 10 people have achieved it, including a 7-year-old child. Actor Tom Cruise trained with a professional diver for weeks to learn how to hold his breath for 6.5 minutes to film an underwater scene in the movie Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. In contrast, in Aquaman, no scenes were actually filmed underwater. Everything was done with digital effects. When the largest diamond in the world was transported from Africa to the United Kingdom, the transport involving sea and land travel was widely reported in the media. However, this was a distraction, since the real diamond was simply sent by regular mail. The first drones, or unmanned aerial vehicles, were created in the 1930s. They were operated by radio control for the purpose of training anti-aircraft defense personnel. Over time, they became more complex, and some countries even modified old or retired airplanes to be remotely controlled. There is an English law called right to light that allows owners of long-standing buildings that have received natural light for at least 20 years to prohibit any construction that blocks their windows and deprives them of that light. The venom of the box jellyfish is among the most deadly in the world. Human victims sometimes drown due to heart failure caused by pain and shock, and survivors may continue to feel considerable pain for weeks afterward. They also often have significant scars where the tentacle made contact with their bodies. One of the earliest cities to ever exist was Çatalhöyük, located in what is now Turkey, which was unique because it was built without streets. The houses were connected, and most were entered through holes in the roof, requiring ladders to move from place to place. The Roman Colosseum is named after a bronze statue called the Colossus of Nero that stood near the entrance. This statue was almost as large as the Statue of Liberty. It is believed to have been destroyed in the 5th or 6th century, and its base still existed until 1936. In late 2016, the Shanghai Tower installed one of the fastest elevators in the world, developed by Mitsubishi Electric. This elevator reaches speeds close to 74 kilometers per hour, equivalent to about 4,000 feet per minute. There is a phenomenon called cellular memory. It occurs when organ transplant recipients experience the same thoughts and desires as their organ donors. Neanderthals and humans coexisted for thousands of years before they went extinct. Both species lived at the same time in parts of Europe and Asia, and genetic evidence shows that interbreeding even occurred between them. That is why many people today, especially outside Africa, still retain a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. In 2021, A 90-year-old man spent $10,000 to place an advertisement in the Wall Street Journal addressed to the president of the company AT&T, where he complained that the internet service was too slow. When Yuri Gagarin, the first cosmonaut to reach space, landed his capsule on Earth, a woman who was passing by approached him and asked if he had come from outer space, and he replied that he had. It must have been a very strange day for both of them. Lizzie Grant was a pop star whose career never took off. All traces of her had to be erased from the internet so she could later re-emerge as Lana Del Rey. And as we know, she became very successful. The Bechstein piano used to record the Beatles song Hey Jude at Trident Studios in London is considered the most important piano in rock history, since it was also used to record other famous songs such as Killer Queen by Queen, Space Oddity by David Bowie, Perfect Day by Lou Reed, and many others. When the studio changed locations, the piano fell from a crane and was destroyed, and was later restored and sold for $400,000. Venus rotates in the opposite direction of all the other planets in the solar system. This phenomenon is known as retrograde rotation and means that the planet spins in the opposite direction of most other planets. As a result, on Venus, the sun appears to rise in the west and set in the east. There is a fish called blue cod that has blue flesh. When it is cooked, the blue color disappears completely. It is an alien fish. This happens because the pigments responsible for the color break down with heat, changing its appearance to a more common color. This type of phenomenon is also seen in other foods where temperature alters the chemical properties of the compounds responsible for color. The first woman in the United States to receive a medical degree was Elizabeth Blackwell, back in 1849. She was admitted to medical school after a student vote that was initially done as a joke, but she ended up graduating with honors. She later helped found medical institutions for women and promoted female participation in medicine at a time when it was uncommon. A software company called Pitstop PC once included a $1,000 prize hidden in the terms and conditions text that most computer programs have, just to see if anyone would read it. It was not until 5 months later and 3,000 sales that someone finally claimed the prize. NFL players are nearly 4 times more likely to suffer from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's during their lives than the average person. This is due to the impacts they receive while practicing the sport, which can cause many microconcussions. The retired NBA basketball player and all-star Yao Ming has his own winery in Napa Valley. Yao Family Wines opened in 2009, produces ultra-premium wines, and is open from 10 to 5 for tastings. Knowledge of silk production was for a long time one of the best-kept secrets in China, protected for more than 3,000 years. It was so valuable that there were severe penalties for those who revealed it, which helped maintain exclusive control of this technique for centuries. There was a time millions of years ago when trees that dried out did not decompose and reintegrate into the environment because the microorganisms that digest wood had not yet evolved. This caused forests to become areas completely covered with layers of wood, which often led to massive fires. Much of the coal consumed today was formed during that time. When Mexican shamans began using Coca-Cola in spiritual cleansing rituals, Pepsi discovered this and began paying them for exclusivity. Groups eventually formed depending on which drink they used. Our brain takes 80 milliseconds to process information. That means we live 80 milliseconds in the past. Kangaroos cannot jump if their tail is not touching the ground. The tail works as an essential support and counterbalance for their movement. When they move slowly, they use the tail as if it were a third leg that helps propel them together with their front and back legs. The birth name of Steven Tyler, from the band Aerosmith, was Stephen Victor Tallarico. Elephants are extremely good at smelling water. Their sense of smell is so strong that they can detect drinking water from a distance of approximately 12 miles. They developed this ability because they often live in regions where water is scarce. The record for the most people on a single airplane flight occurred in 1991, when 1,086 Ethiopians were evacuated on a Boeing 747 to Jerusalem in what was called Operation Solomon. By the time they landed, the number had increased to 1,089, since 2 babies were born during the flight. In 1967, Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt disappeared after leaving his home to swim at the beach. He was never found. Today, a public swimming pool bears his name. The German Hans Scharf was the most effective interrogator of the Second World War, who, instead of using traditional force methods, would befriend prisoners. He took them to the movies or on picnics until he obtained the information. Thanks to his peaceful methods, he was not persecuted after the war. 5 high school students and their teacher from a small town in Sicily, Italy, created a prototype of a vending machine that turns your recyclable plastics into phone cases. It shreds the plastics into small pellets that are then melted and used to create 3-dimensional printed phone cases. The project was created to encourage other young people to recycle more. Sylvan Goldman, the inventor of shopping carts, had to hire models to push the carts in his store to make them more appealing to customers when they were first introduced. At first, many shoppers resisted using them because they associated them with wheelchairs or awkward baskets. But after seeing people use them naturally, the idea gained acceptance and ended up becoming an essential element in supermarkets around the world. Rats cannot vomit. This happens because their digestive system and the structure of their esophagus and stomach prevent them from performing the vomiting reflex. For this reason, scientists often use them in studies about poisons and toxins, since they cannot easily expel the substances they ingest. According to research, taking too many photos can harm our ability to retain memories, since it creates a distraction that prevents us from remembering information in detail as we normally would. This phenomenon is known as the photo-taking impairment effect. They could have given it a more creative name. There is a Burger King restaurant in the city of Mattoon, Illinois, United States, that opened in 1959 before the chain we know today was created. By law, there cannot be another Burger King within 15.5 miles of the original Burger King. The first pizzeria to open in the American continent was Lombardi's Pizza in 1905. It still exists and is located in New York. The lead singer of the band Red Hot Chili Peppers saved a baby's life while filming an episode of Carpool Karaoke for James Corden's show. After stopping to do a dance battle that did not make it into the final cut, they took a break, and a woman came out asking for help because her baby could not breathe. So he performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation and revived the baby until the ambulance arrived. In Australia, there is a Christmas song where Santa's sleigh is pulled by 6 white kangaroos. Their names are Jackaroo, Curly, Bluey, Two Up, Desert Head, and Snow. This song is part of Australian Christmas culture, where celebrations take place in the middle of summer, so many traditions are adapted to the local climate, including versions of Santa at the beach and carols with local elements. The first 3-dimensional feature film was called The Power of Love and premiered in 1922 in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the 3-dimensional version of the film is presumed lost, and the 2-dimensional version was later shown under the name Forbidden Lover. After Marilyn Monroe died, her former husband, the baseball player Joe DiMaggio, was so devastated that he brought roses to her grave 3 times a week for 20 years. He never remarried, and his final words were, "At last, I will be able to see Marilyn again." Currently, more photos are taken every 2 minutes than all the photos taken during the 19th century. Christopher Robin Milne, the son of the author of Winnie the Pooh, A. Milne, and the person on whom the character Christopher Robin was based, actually hated the books his father wrote and believed that it was a way his father exploited his childhood. 80% of YouTube views come from outside the United States. YouTube also exists in more than 88 countries and can be browsed in a total of 76 different languages, covering approximately 95% of the internet population. It is not recommended to shower during a thunderstorm, since an electrical discharge can travel through the pipes and through the water if lightning strikes the house or building. The risk is greater if there is a metal plumbing system. The first time overtone singing was recorded was in 1929 in a song called Lonely Cowboy by Arthur Miles. Overtone singing is when you can sing 2 tones at once using your throat, and it is popular in traditional Central Asian music. The range of frequencies our ears can detect goes from 20 to 20,000 hertz. If it could go below 20, you would be able to hear your muscles moving. In Avengers Endgame, Thor was supposed to return to his muscular look halfway through the movie. However, actor Chris Hemsworth enjoyed playing that version of the character so much that he suggested Thor remain that way for the entire film. Norway offers incredible incentives for people who own electric cars, such as free parking, free charging, and the use of bus lanes. Thanks to these policies, the adoption of electric vehicles grew rapidly to become one of the highest in the world. Over time, the success became so great that some of these advantages began to be limited or adjusted to balance infrastructure use and maintain system sustainability. In Uganda, a country in Africa, 50% of the population is under 15 years of age. This is because the country has one of the highest birth rates in the world, which produces an extremely young population compared with most countries. In Sweden and Finland, girls celebrate Easter by dressing up as witches and going door to door asking for candy, similar to Halloween. This tradition dates back to the 17th century witch trials, when it was believed that witches would fly during those days and people stayed inside their homes to protect themselves. When the country of Israel was founded, physicist Albert Einstein was offered the position of President of International Affairs, but he declined the offer. The blue whale has the highest percentage of body fat of any animal, with more than 35%. With whales weighing up to 180 tons, that is easily a record amount of fat for a single animal. This layer of fat, known as blubber, not only serves as an energy reserve, but also acts as thermal insulation and helps with buoyancy in the cold ocean waters where it lives. Soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo became the first person to reach a total of 500 million followers on Instagram in November 2022. In the same month, he also became the first soccer player to score a goal in 5 different World Cups. In North Korea, only military and government officials can own motor vehicles. Although in practice there are some controlled exceptions, most of the population relies on public transportation or bicycles. Car ownership is heavily regulated and is usually tied to status within the system, which makes it uncommon to see heavy traffic outside the capital. The phrase, happy wife, happy life, is actually quite accurate. A study conducted in 2014 shows that men who are unhappily married can still be happy with their lives overall if their wives are satisfied with their marriages. In 1838, a 14-year-old boy entered Buckingham Palace disguised as a chimney cleaner and reached the Queen's bedroom. He took her underwear before fleeing. The incident was part of a series of intrusions carried out by a young man named Edward Jones, known as the Boy Jones, who managed to enter the royal residence several times before finally being arrested. There is only one university in Greenland, located in the capital, Nuuk, where there are around 200 students and fewer than 20 staff members, including teachers and maintenance personnel. This low number is due to the fact that most students from Greenland attend university in Denmark on a full government scholarship. If the Walmart retail chain, including its employees, were a country, it would have a larger population than 95 countries and would rank 25th among the world's largest economies. A teenager in Taiwan died after playing the video game Diablo 3 for 40 hours straight without eating. The case was reported as an extreme example of physical exhaustion, where the lack of rest, hydration, and food can have serious consequences. Situations like this have led to discussions about the risks of prolonged gaming sessions and the importance of maintaining healthy habits even during digital leisure. Woody Allen has written all his scripts using the same manual typewriter. For decades, he has preferred to work with an old Olympia typewriter that he has kept since the early years of his career. Despite technological advances, the director has said in interviews that he feels more comfortable writing in this traditional way. A comedian founded the Polish Beer Lovers Party in 1990 as a satire in response to the political changes happening in the country at that time. Surprisingly, in the 1991 elections, they received more than 360,000 votes, which earned them 16 of the 460 seats in the Polish parliament. To demonstrate how committed he was to his role as Walter White in the series Breaking Bad, actor Bryan Cranston learned how to cook the same thing his character cooked, his famous blue crystals. In 1959, the three-point seatbelt was invented by the company Volvo. Instead of keeping the patent exclusive to make more money, they decided to release it so any manufacturer could use it. This same design is so effective that it is still used today. Before modern refrigeration existed, people in Russia and Finland would place Russian brown frogs in their milk to keep it fresh. According to organic chemist A.T. Lebedev of Moscow State University, the frog's skin secretions are loaded with peptides and antimicrobial compounds. The author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, chose the uncommon name Hermione for the wizard's companion so that not many girls with that name would be teased for being nerdy or overly studious. The name comes from Greek mythology and ancient literary characters, and with the success of the saga, it ended up becoming much more widely known in different countries. It is true that someone can pay to have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at a cost of $40,000, but they must be nominated by themselves or by someone else, and also go through a validation process to be accepted. The replica of the Eiffel Tower, located at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas, is built at a scale of 1 to 2, meaning half the size of the original. It was supposed to be full size, but it could not be built that way due to its proximity to the city's airport. In Thailand, there is a special language that is used only when speaking to the king. In reality, it is an honorific register of the Thai language known as royal language, which uses different vocabulary and expressions to refer to the monarch and the royal family, reflecting the deep cultural respect that exists toward the institution. The demolition of the Eiffel Tower was scheduled for 1909, since it was originally intended to be a temporary structure, but it was saved after it was proposed to use it as a radio antenna that, with the necessary modifications, could transmit signals across the world. It was also used to display illuminated advertisements. Dr. Soren Sorensen invented the pH scale because he wanted to measure the acidity of beer and create the best beer possible. There are stars so far away that we cannot see their light because the universe has not existed long enough for that light to reach us. Because of their position on the planet, Argentina and Chile are the only two countries where, in theory, you could dig straight down and reach China, although in practice this would be very difficult. This is how Brussels sprouts grow, and although they are not everyone's favorite vegetable, they are very nutritious. When Google became a publicly traded company, its founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page lowered their salaries to $1, and it has remained that way ever since. Their income comes from the shares they own in the company. The sloth only urinates and defecates once a week. Constipation is normal for them, and that is why, when they go, it is like giving birth. This process can cause them to lose a considerable portion of their body weight in a single event. To do this, they slowly descend from the trees to the ground, which exposes them to predators, but it is a behavior they consistently maintain. According to the Global Peace Index, the most peaceful countries in the world are Iceland, New Zealand, Ireland, and Denmark, while the least peaceful are Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, and South Sudan. The jaguar is the national animal of Brazil. Its scientific name is Panthera onca, and it is the largest carnivorous mammal in Central and South America, weighing up to 211 pounds. Hans Zimmer, the composer of music for more than 150 films, has never had any formal musical education. Despite this, he developed his talent in a self-taught way and became one of the most influential composers in modern cinema. His style combines traditional instruments with digital technology, creating memorable soundtracks for major productions that have impacted generations of audiences. 90% of the calories we burn are used to maintain body temperature. A good way to lose weight is to expose yourself to the cold. But please do not go climb into the refrigerator. The body constantly spends energy to keep its internal temperature stable, and when the environment is cold, it must work harder to preserve heat, activating metabolic processes that consume more energy. The movie Joker Folie à Deux, which is the first sequel in actor Joaquin Phoenix's career, became the superhero film with the largest box office drop between its first and second weekend, with an 81.4% decline, surpassing the record of the Marvels with 78.1%. In addition, it received a D rating from CinemaScore, the worst ever given to a superhero film. If our galaxy, the Milky Way, collided with another galaxy, it is most likely that no planets or celestial bodies would collide. This is because galaxies are so large that everything in them is separated by thousands and thousands of miles. Elephants have an irrational fear of bees. Just the sound they make while flying is enough to scare a large group of elephants. Actor Matt Damon refused to lend his voice and likeness to the video game The Bourne Conspiracy from the Jason Bourne film series that he starred in, because he wanted it to be more like the game Myst, which focuses on puzzles and solving riddles. Instead, it was developed as a first-person shooter. A toaster uses almost half the energy of a normal-size oven. This happens because the space that needs to be heated is much smaller, and the heat is concentrated directly on the bread. For that reason, small kitchen appliances are often more efficient when preparing small portions of food. Pablo Escobar collected exotic animals for his personal zoo. When his estate was raided, his hippos were released into the wild, and now Colombia has the largest population of hippos outside of Africa. These animals adapted to the local ecosystem and began to reproduce without natural predators, which has raised environmental concerns due to their impact on rivers and native species. Scientists from the University of Chile spent 1 year designing a new vaccine that will give anyone who drinks even a small amount of alcohol an immediate and very bad hangover. They developed it to help address the problem of alcoholism in the country. Director James Cameron wanted the singer Billy Idol to play the character T-1000, the villain in the movie Terminator 2. His appearance was used to create the storyboards, but it did not happen because he had a motorcycle accident days before filming began. The first three-dimensional movie was called The Power of Love, a silent film released in 1922. It also had two alternate endings that viewers could choose by closing one of their eyes. There are several gemstones that are more valuable and harder to obtain than diamonds, such as tanzanite, which can only be found in one region on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, or painite, which is considered the rarest gemstone in the world, with fewer than 1,000 specimens ever found. Scientists discovered fossils of pygmy Tyrannosaurus rex that lived for years in the Arctic region toward the end of the Cretaceous period. They were about half the size of the large T-Rex. On every continent, there is at least one city named Rome. In total, there are 35 cities around the world with the same name as the famous Italian city. At the beginning of World War I, the magician and escape artist Harry Houdini sold war bonds and taught United States soldiers how to free themselves from German restraints. He used his escape expertise to show practical release techniques, especially useful in case of capture. In addition, he participated in public events to raise funds, combining entertainment with support for the war effort. In New Zealand, there is a cave that glows in the dark. This peculiar glow comes from a unique species of luminous larvae called Arachnocampa luminosa, which are bioluminescent. They generate light to attract food sources such as insects. This cave attracts thousands of visitors each year. The creator of Mario Bros., Shigeru Miyamoto, is forbidden by Nintendo from riding a bicycle to work because his safety is too important to the company. They do not even allow him to ride with a helmet, elbow pads, and knee pads. 90% of the cells that make up our bodies are not human. They are mainly bacteria and fungi, which means we are only 10% ourselves. In the 1957 movie 12 Angry Men, the director gradually changed the focal length of the lens as the film progressed. This was done to create a growing sense of claustrophobia in the viewer. Alcohol-based hand sanitizer was invented by a nursing student named Lupe Hernandez in 1966. She concluded that if alcohol were presented as a gel, people could clean their hands more easily in places where water and soap were unavailable. There are more than 10 million bricks in the Empire State Building. The building, completed in 1931, was constructed in the surprisingly short time of just over a year and became the tallest skyscraper in the world for decades. In addition to the millions of bricks, enormous amounts of steel and limestone were also used to build this famous New York structure. The first American woman to become a self-made millionaire was a woman named Sarah Breedlove, also known as Madam C.J. Walker. She made her fortune by developing a tonic that could make hair grow faster. The word dinosaur comes from the ancient Greek words deinos, meaning terribly large or awe-inspiring, and sauros, meaning lizard. The name was invented in 1842 by Richard Owen. Doritos can be made without powder, so they do not leave residue on your hands and still taste the same. However, the company Frito-Lay intentionally makes them that way because they claim having stained hands is part of the full product experience. The sung Sega title that appears at the beginning of the first Sonic game took up nearly 15% of the total memory of the Sega Genesis cartridge it came on. The Sega chant remains a distinctive brand signature to this day. There is spray-on clothing that can be applied directly to the body and reused multiple times. It was developed by Spanish fashion designer Manuel Torres. It has only been used at special events due to its limited practicality. William Shakespeare added more than 1,700 words to the English language. Some of those words include new, dazzling, and yes, swagger. Many of them appeared for the first time in his works and later became popular as he had great creativity for combining terms, turning nouns into verbs, and playing with language, deeply influencing the evolution of modern English. NASA is developing three-dimensional printed pizzas for astronauts. The idea is to create food layer by layer using ingredients in cartridges, which would allow long-lasting meals with controlled nutrients to be prepared during extended space missions. This type of technology could also be useful for future trips to Mars, where storing fresh food would be much more complicated. The largest migration of mammals in the world is that of bats. Around 100 million fruit bats, roughly the size of a domestic cat, migrate to Kasanka National Park in Zambia, where they arrive to feed on the abundant fruit available. These bats play a very important role in pollination and seed dispersal throughout the region. The music heard during the slow-motion scene in the movie Dread from 2012 is based on a Justin Bieber song, but played 800% slower. To ensure no information leaked about the movie Star Wars: The Force Awakens before filming, the scripts were printed on dark red pages. This was done to prevent photocopying, although photos could still be taken. The United States is currently in the longest period without a president dying during his term. The last time it happened was with John F. Kennedy in 1963. Since then, several decades have passed without a presidential death in office, something notable in a country whose history includes several assassinations and deaths from illness while leaders were still serving. There is a ship that can transport container cargo ships. It is called Blue Marlin. It measures 712 feet and can carry up to 75,000 tons. It once even transported an entire oil platform. The Dead Sea has an unusually high salt concentration, with about 8 or 9 times more salt than natural seawater. This means that people can float easily in the Dead Sea due to its natural buoyancy, although I would not recommend trying it because it is somewhat unsettling. In 1818, when Abraham Lincoln was 9 years old, his mother Nancy died from a mysterious milk sickness that was spreading through southern Indiana. It turned out that the strange illness was caused by drinking contaminated milk from a cow that had ingested the poisonous white snakeroot plant. At the Barbican Art Center in London, there is an exhibition room called the Rain Room that has sensors causing water to fall throughout the room, simulating a storm, except exactly where you are walking, so the people who enter do not get wet. Citizens of Singapore are the only ones in the world whose passport allows them to enter North Korea, South Korea, China, and the United States without needing a visa. The Singapore passport allows entry to 192 countries without a visa and is the second most powerful after Japan's, which grants access to 193 countries. Mary, Queen of Scots, became queen at only 6 days old. This is because her father died and she was his successor. During her childhood, the country was governed by regents in her name while she grew up away from Scotland. Later, her life was marked by political and religious conflicts that eventually led to her abdication and a tragic fate. The pangolin is a mammal that looks like a reptile due to its scales. Its scales are made of keratin, which is the same material as human nails. These structures serve as defense, as it can roll into a nearly impenetrable ball when it feels threatened. In addition, it is a nocturnal and solitary animal that feeds mainly on ants and termites using its long, sticky tongue. An average woman uses her own weight in lipstick every 5 years. The phrase is used as a curious exaggeration to illustrate how much cosmetic product can be consumed over time. Although the exact figure can vary greatly depending on each person's habits, it reflects how such a small object can accumulate surprising use over the years. The first television remote controls worked with a spring-loaded hammer that struck a solid aluminum rod inside the device, which emitted a sound at an ultrasonic frequency that the television could detect. This allowed them to function without batteries, and each button emitted a different tone for different functions. The first inhabitants of the island of Madagascar were not African people, despite its proximity. They were actually people from Indonesia who arrived in canoes after traveling nearly 3,107 miles. Planet Earth becomes heavier every day. Its mass increases by 110.2 short tons daily due to space dust and meteorites that fall onto it. For years, many online posts claimed that Oasis vocalist Liam Gallagher had been photographed by Google Street View inside a bar in London. However, in March 2024, Liam himself responded with a tweet stating that it was not him, since he never wears shorts with sneakers and socks. A convict in France escaped from prison using oranges painted like grenades, and his wife helped him escape by picking him up with a helicopter after learning how to pilot it. In the 1930s, people who lacked space in their London apartments used to use a baby cage to give their babies more space and fresh air. It was a wire device that was hung outside the window. Yes, that sounds safe. If a bald eagle loses a feather on one wing, it will also lose the same feather on the other wing. This is done to maintain balance and avoid affecting its ability to fly. Have you ever noticed that old books have a distinct smell? Well, that is because the organic compounds in paper break down over time and release chemicals that smell like vanilla, almonds, and grass. The government of Romania attempted to include witches among professions required to pay taxes to help address the country's economic recession. Birds have never been taken into space because they require gravity to swallow their food. You can make your own homemade Gatorade by adding a bit of salt to a powdered drink such as Tang or Kool-Aid with water. It is not the same recipe, but it contains the same amount of electrolytes. Most mammals do not live long after their reproductive years. Only a few that we know do, such as the orca, possibly some great apes, and humans. In these cases, older individuals can provide advantages to the group, such as passing on knowledge, caring for offspring, or improving collective survival, which has led to this phenomenon being studied as part of social evolution. An ornithologist named George Archibald managed to save the whooping crane species from extinction by spending 37 years acting as the mate of a female crane that believed he was human. He eventually succeeded in getting her to mate with a real bird, and the rest is history. Only one of the 20 most common surnames in Sweden does not end in son, and it is Lindberg. This happens because for centuries, patronymic surnames were very common, formed from the father's name plus the ending son, which means son of. That is why names such as Andersson, Johansson, or Carlson still dominate a large portion of the country's records. The moving sofa problem is a mathematical challenge that seeks to determine the largest sofa that can be moved through an L-shaped hallway. It is still considered unsolved. The largest shape found so far describes a sofa with 18 curved sections, achieving an approximate area of 2.2195, which is close but does not reach the theoretical limit. The former leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, father of current leader Kim Jong-un, declared at a dinner in the year 2000 that he had invented hamburgers and that they would be a gift to his people. He did not call them hamburgers even though they looked exactly the same. He called them gogyobank, which means double bread with meat. In Great Britain, it has been observed that electricity demand rises dramatically during halftime of Premier League soccer matches. This is because people usually turn on their electric kettles to make tea during the 15-minute break. In the country of Vietnam, there is a bridge called Da Nang that is shaped like a dragon. It was built in 2013. It is made of steel, and the dragon can breathe fire from its mouth as part of a show held on special occasions. The Antarctic polar desert is the largest desert on Earth. It covers the continent of Antarctica and is about 5.5 million square miles in size. Despite being covered in ice, it receives very little annual precipitation, which classifies it as a desert. Its extreme conditions, with very low temperatures and strong winds, make it one of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. A man pretended to have a mental illness to get out of prison because he thought living in a psychiatric hospital would be better. However, once he arrived at the asylum, he tried to leave, but the doctors diagnosed him as a sociopath. This was because pretending to have a mental illness to escape prison is exactly the kind of manipulative behavior expected from a sociopath. Jessica Alba's crying in Fantastic Four did not look very convincing, according to director Tim Story. He said it would be better to add it later using computers. During filming, the director felt that the scene was not working as expected and chose to use digital effects to improve the tears in the final shot, something that is not unusual in modern film productions. The longest living tortoise in the world is named Jonathan. He was born in 1832 in Seychelles and holds the record as the oldest living land animal. He lives on the island of St. Helena, where the 5-cent coin features his image on the reverse side. The city of Kamikatsu in Japan aims to recycle 100% of its waste. They have 34 recycling categories and currently recycle 80% of everything they produce. Thanks to food production technology, such as motorized equipment, today a single farmer can produce enough food to feed 155 people. By comparison, in 1940, a farmer could feed only 19 people. This statistic comes from the United States, but a similar increase has been observed worldwide. Siberia has a population density of fewer than 8 people per square mile. This is especially striking considering that Siberia covers 77% of all of Russia and has an area more than 50 times that of the United Kingdom, yet it still has only half the population. A man in New York named Robert Samuel is a professional line stander who earns up to $1,000 a week simply by waiting in line for other people. So the next time you want that new iPhone or tickets to a show, you know who to call. If the price per square foot of that area is taken into account, Central Park in Manhattan is worth more than all of Alaska. This is because it is surrounded by some of the most expensive real estate in the world, in one of the urban areas with the highest property values on the planet. Alaska, on the other hand, has a gigantic territory, but vast remote regions with low commercial value. The first functional sewing machine that imitated hand stitching was invented in France in 1830 by a tailor named Barthélemy Timonier. When other tailors in the area learned about it, they burned down the factory out of fear that the machine would leave them without work. But that did not stop the invention from becoming popular. When Led Zeppelin achieved worldwide fame, music critics claimed people only bought their records because they said Led Zeppelin on the cover. In response, their next album had no words at all, only an image of a man carrying branches, and it still sold 37 million copies. Due to strict censorship laws in cartoons during the 1990s, Spider-Man only punched someone 3 times throughout the 65 episodes across 5 seasons of the animated series Spider-Man from 1994. Spider-Man only fought villains using wrestling holds and shooting webs at them. The most expensive aquarium fish in the world is the Asian arowana, also known as the dragonfish. The Chinese believe it brings good luck and prosperity due to its red color and coin-like scales. This fish has been sold for up to $300,000. Due to its rarity, it is protected by international regulations, and each specimen is usually registered with a microchip to prevent illegal trade, which further increases its exclusivity among collectors. It is completely possible to see the Milky Way, but light pollution has made it a rare occurrence. In fact, in the 1990s, there was a massive blackout in California, and residents of Los Angeles began to worry about the strange clouds they saw above their heads. It turned out they were seeing the Milky Way for the first time. Niccolò Paganini, considered one of the greatest violin virtuosos, was so good that many people believed he was the son of the devil or that he had sold his soul. At one point, he even had to show letters written by his mother to prove that he had human parents. The movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, starring Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, has more literal titles in different regions of the world. While in Latin America, it is called Eternal Sunshine of a Mind Without Memories, in Spain, it is called Forget Me, and in Italy, it is Se mi lasci ti cancello, which means, if you leave me, I erase you. The investment bank J.P. Morgan stored all information about risky investments in Excel spreadsheets, so they depended on data entry workers not making typing errors. When too many mistakes accumulated, they had to restructure and face many lawsuits. This cost them $6 billion in 2012, all because they relied on Excel. In 2009, Burger King Japan sold a promotional Windows 7 Whopper hamburger that had 7 meat patties. It cost 777 yen for the first customers of the day who bought it, and was only available for 7 days. The Sarpa selpa is a fish that, on rare occasions, can cause unusual effects if consumed, especially certain parts of its body. In ancient times, even during the Roman Empire, it became associated with curious experiences. The longest natural bridge in the world is located in China and is called Xianren, or Fairy Bridge. It was known only to local people because of the remote terrain where it is located. It was not discovered by the rest of the world until the year 2010, thanks to someone exploring satellite images on Google Earth. Saltwater Brewery in Florida partnered with the advertising agency We Believers to create fully edible 6-pack beer rings. They are made from byproducts of the brewing process, such as wheat and barley, and are fully biodegradable and completely digestible. They are as strong as plastic ones, but if an animal or bird gets caught in one, it can snack on it and break it down quickly. Samuel J. Seymour was the last surviving witness of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. He lived long enough to talk about his experience on a television program in 1956. An eagle can kill a baby deer and carry it away while flying. The largest eagles, such as the golden eagle, have incredible strength in their talons and can hunt prey relatively large compared with their size. Even so, they usually attack young, small, or weakened animals because carrying too much weight in flight is very difficult. It is believed that humans see the colors we see because they are the part of the light spectrum that can pass through water, which is where eyes first evolved. In our evolutionary path, there was no reason or need to expand this spectrum, something that did occur in many other species. An arcade machine placed in Chicago in 1981 had a system allowing players to upload their photo if they achieved a high score. It had to be removed after just 1 day because someone had already uploaded an inappropriate photo. In the city of Boston, United States, there are poems hidden in the pavement that can only be seen when it rains. The website Nissan.com does not belong to the automobile company. It belongs to a person named Uzi Nissan, with whom the company has had a legal battle since 1999. Currently, Nissan's official website is nissanglobal.com, and in different countries, it uses local web domains. During the American Civil War, if you were drafted, you could pay someone $300 to go in your place. This was called commutation and was intended to raise money for the war effort, but it was often heavily criticized because it was better at raising money than troops. There is a hotel at the top of Mount Foronon-Buins in the Julian Alps that accommodates only 9 people. Guests can stay there for free as long as they are willing to hike 8,300 feet to get there. Yeah, that does not seem worth it to me. The river spirit scene in the animated film Spirited Away was directly inspired by an event in director Hayao Miyazaki's life. While helping clean a river near where he lived, he found a bicycle, but when they tried to remove it, they realized it was trapped under layers of dirt and required great effort to free it. Out of the 338 known species of hummingbirds, 50 are native to Costa Rica. When the United States Navy banned alcohol on ships in 1914, on the last day, they held a huge party to drink what remained and invited ships from other countries to join. Weeks later, many of those guests would become enemies when World War I began. The story goes that ice cream cones were first used at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904 by an ice cream vendor who ran out of cups and decided to use crispy sweets called zalabia, similar to a rolled waffle, to serve the ice cream. These were being sold at the neighboring stand. However, there are actually patent records prior to that year for making ice cream cones, so it was not the first time the idea had been conceived. Human life expectancy has increased more in the past 50 years than in the previous 200,000 years. The Lamborghini driven by Bruce Wayne in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy is a Murcielago model. There is a replica of Noah's Ark in Williamstown, Kentucky. It was built by the creationist ministry, Answers in Genesis. It has exactly the dimension specified in the book of Genesis, with 450 feet in length, 76 feet in height, and 46 feet in width. And it cost around $100 million to build. A man in Saudi Arabia placed a community refrigerator outside his home and asked his neighbors to donate any excess food they had so that those in need could get something to eat without having to beg for it. What a good man. $250 million were spent promoting Star Wars: The Force Awakens, $50 million more than it cost to make the movie. The campaign included partnerships with numerous brands, international events, toys, advertisements, and promotional products that helped turn the release into one of the biggest film launches in history. In the city of Wujiang in China, there is a highway that runs directly above many apartment buildings. It was completed in 1997, and after years of complaints from residents, heavy trucks were banned from using it, and lighter trucks were restricted. According to research, DNA has a cycle where, after many years, it can no longer be recovered, and scientists concluded that the oldest organism we could clone would not exceed 2 million years in age. The last dinosaurs lived 65 million years ago, so it is better to forget about Jurassic Park becoming real. Chocolate was already consumed as a drink more than 3,000 years ago, but it was not until 1847 that the first solid chocolate was invented. Now, it is the most popular way to consume it. In 2004, Robert Downey Jr. recorded an album of original songs and covers called The Futurist. But since it was not very well received by critics, he decided to focus on acting again. There are playgrounds in England, Finland, Germany, and the United States designed specifically for elderly residents. They feature low-impact exercise equipment created to promote balance and flexibility, such as elliptical machines, stationary bikes, and flexors. The Kids Wish Network was named the worst charity in the United States in 2013. According to a report, only 3 cents of every dollar raised actually went toward granting children's wishes, while the rest of the money went directly into the pockets of the organization's operators. Well, there is a special place in hell for those people. It has been observed that dolphins can communicate by telephone, and it seems that they know what they are talking about. In some scientific experiments, it has been seen that when 2 pools are connected through an underwater audio system, the dolphins produce whistles and specific sounds that appear to respond to those of the other individual, as if they were maintaining a conversation at a distance. The Cave of the Crystals, in the state of Chihuahua in Mexico, has the largest crystals in the world, which can measure up to 36 feet and weigh approximately 60 short tons. It was discovered in 2000. The extreme conditions inside the cave, with temperatures up to 136 degrees and more than 90% humidity, make it practically uninhabitable for humans without special equipment. Luxembourg sent 44 soldiers to the Korean War, which was more of a symbolic act since other countries sent thousands, such as the United States, which sent nearly 900,000. Actress Jennifer Lawrence once threatened some men with the bow and arrow she used in the Hunger Games movies after they entered her home, but she later realized they were only repair technicians. The pygmy hippopotamus named Mu Deng, who was born in July 2024 and went viral on the internet because of her appearance, will grow to weigh up to 606 pounds. This species of hippopotamus is endangered, with fewer than 2,000 remaining in the wild. The zoo in Thailand where Mu Deng lives doubled its daily visitors in recent months. The boiling point of human saliva is 3 times higher than that of normal water. This is because saliva is not just water, but a complex mixture that contains enzymes, proteins, mineral salts, and other compounds that alter its physical properties. These components influence the way the liquid responds to heat compared with pure water. It is actually possible to find traces of DNA on cigarette butts. An artist named Heather Dewey Hagborg used cigarette butts and old chewing gum she found on the streets to create 3-dimensional portraits of the people whose DNA was found on those objects. Well, that is one more reason not to litter. How creepy. There is a sport called joggling, where you run and juggle at the same time. It was invented by a man named Bill Giddus, who juggled balls on a running track to improve his coordination after realizing that the rhythm of a 3-ball juggling pattern matched easily with a wide range of running cadences. Lizards do not have a defined average lifespan and could theoretically live forever if it were not for the effects of the environment around them. In Japan, there is a condition called hikikomori, where around 1 million people, mostly men, have locked themselves in their bedrooms for years, creating social and health problems. Many depend on their families to live and avoid any contact outside their space, which can last for long periods. In recent years, support and guidance programs have been created to help them gradually reintegrate into society. Despite being much smaller in size, the wolverine can successfully attack much larger animals, including caribou and moose. This animal is known for its disproportionate strength, its aggressiveness, and its ability to travel long distances in search of food, which allows it to take on prey that far exceeds its size. Although lately Beijing, China has been widely talked about because of its pollution, in reality, the most polluted city in the world is New Delhi, India. Various studies on air quality have indicated that the Indian capital often records extremely high levels of fine particulate matter in suspension, especially during certain times of the year when traffic, industry, and agricultural burning in nearby regions combine. On the YouTube show Hot Ones, where celebrities are interviewed while eating chicken wings with increasingly spicy sauces, only a few guests have given up and failed to eat the last wing, including musician DJ Khaled, basketball player Shaquille O'Neal, who did not finish the final wing, comedian Ricky Gervais, and rappers Lil Yachty, Chance the Rapper, and recently Ice Spice. Director Christopher Nolan said he based the Joker's makeup style on the works of painter Francis Bacon. Bacon liked to paint highly distorted faces. To this day, science has not reached an agreement on why most people are right-handed, while there are fewer left-handed individuals. In 2015, in a city in New Jersey, 2 daycare employees were arrested after organizing a fight club for children aged 4 to 6. Naturally, purple eyes do exist. This is attributed to a condition called Alexandria's genesis, which causes pale skin and purple-colored eyes. Eyes can appear violet in very rare cases due to the mix of blue and red tones in light or certain medical conditions. Yogurt was discovered in Mongolia and Mesopotamia 7,000 years ago, where people transported milk in animal bladder bags and later realized that natural enzymes in the bags caused the milk to ferment. During the Battle of Moscow in the Second World War, the annual military parade commemorating the revolution in the Soviet Union was carried out. All of this happened despite German troops being less than approximately 31 miles from the city. The soldiers who participated paraded and then went directly to battle. In the 17th century, for some reason, many people in Europe believed that Egyptian mummy powder had magical healing powers. Many mummies of great historical and cultural value were destroyed because of this. There were even people in Egypt who sold them on the street to visitors. The Bacardi logo is a bat because there is a species of these animals that pollinates sugarcane and protects it from insects. The drinks from this brand are made from sugarcane. Crocodiles and birds are the only remaining archosaurs. Their common ancestor lived 240 million years ago. This means crocodiles are more closely related to birds than to lizards. Coca-Cola sales in Sweden dropped to 50% during the end-of-year holiday season. This is due to the tradition of consuming a drink called julmust in that country, which is a carbonated beverage made with hops extract and sugar. In June 2016, there was a massive breach of Twitter usernames and passwords that affected nearly 33 million users. According to the security company Leaked Source, more than 120,000 people had used the password 123456. After losing a battle in World War II for taking a tea break, the British Army perfected the art of making tea inside a tank by creating the British Army boiling vessel. It is a built-in kettle for armored vehicles. The largest prime number discovered so far has more than 24 million digits. It was found in 2018 by the project Great Internet Mersenne Prime Search, a network of thousands of computers that work 24 hours a day searching for increasingly larger prime numbers. Domino's Pizza co-founder James Monahan traded his 50% share of the company in 1961 for a used Volkswagen car. His brother kept the remaining 97%, which he later sold for billions of dollars. When a caterpillar eats a tobacco plant, it activates a mechanism in the plant that releases a chemical signal that attracts the caterpillar's predators. There is a city called Y in Arizona that was originally intended to be named Y, pronounced Y in English. This was because two highways intersected nearby and formed a Y shape, but the name could not be a single letter since the minimum was 3. After the huge success of the video game Pokemon Go, the company T-Mobile launched a special promotion for its customers in the United States. It offered unlimited data to play for 1 year without it counting against the plan, as well as discounts on accessories such as portable batteries, since many users were quickly draining their phone batteries while playing. To protect the city's water, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power purchased 80 million hollow black balls to cover its reservoirs. This was done to prevent sunlight from triggering dangerous chemical reactions. That is why I prefer bottled water. For many years, Valentine's Day was banned in Saudi Arabia, and stores could not sell red roses or items related to the celebration. However, since around 2018, the authorities relaxed the restrictions, and today the date is openly celebrated in many parts of the country. The turtles that appear in the first Rocky movie from 1976 are the pets of actor Sylvester Stallone, and they are the same ones that appeared years later in Rocky Balboa in 2006 and in Creed II in 2018. There is a condition that llamas and alpacas can develop when raised very close to humans that causes them to become extremely aggressive. Alexander Solonik was a Russian criminal known as Superkiller, who was attributed with numerous attacks against members of the mafia before becoming part of that same world. Years after forming his own organization, he died under violent circumstances. In the video game NBA Jam, the Detroit Pistons team was practically unbeatable when the player used the Chicago Bulls. This was not a game error. It was because the lead programmer, Mark Turmel, was a Pistons fan. Roulette wheels in the United States are different from those in other countries because they include the 0 and 00. This lowers the odds of winning to 1 in 38, while in other places it is 1 in 37 when betting on individual numbers. The pufferfish has enough toxin in it to kill 30 adult humans, and there is no antidote. But surprisingly, the meat of some pufferfish is still considered a delicacy. In countries such as Japan, this dish is prepared by specially licensed chefs who spend years training to carefully remove the toxic parts. Even a small mistake can be dangerous, so its consumption is kept under strict regulations. The Luna moth does not have a mouth, so it does not eat. It only lives for about a week, and its only purpose is to mate. During its adult stage, it survives on the energy it stored as a caterpillar and uses pheromones to attract a mate over long distances at night. Its short life is an example of a biological strategy focused entirely on reproduction. Lake Michigan is so clear that ships that sank there can be seen from space. In some areas, the water is very transparent, and the remains of old shipwrecks can be observed from the air or through aerial photographs, since the lake has preserved many sunken ships because of its low temperatures. There are ships that transport ships, such as the Yacht Servant, which is 699 feet long and was designed specifically to carry luxury yachts. This giant vessel can transport up to 36 super yachts at once. To load them, it partially submerges its hull, allowing the yachts to float directly above it before lifting them. In Iceland, beer was prohibited from 1915 until 1989. On March 1st of that year, the day it was legalized, it became National Beer Day, celebrated with many parties in that country. The decision to use classical music in the iconic soundtrack of the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey was made by Stanley Kubrick at the last minute during post-production. The composer who had been hired did not find out that all of his music had been replaced until he attended the premiere. According to Guinness World Records, the largest chocolate bar by weight was created by Thornton's in Alfreton, Derbyshire, United Kingdom. The bar measured 12 feet by 14 feet by 1 foot thick and weighed an astonishing 12,770 pounds. Fennec foxes mate for life. Male foxes become especially aggressive with each other when mating season approaches to protect their partners. In addition, these pairs usually share the care of their young, with the male responsible for bringing food while the female stays in the burrow, reinforcing the bond and increasing the chances of survival of the litter in desert environments. Your digestive system will process approximately 50 tons of food during your lifetime. This complex system includes organs such as the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and the liver, which work together to break down food, absorb nutrients, and eliminate waste necessary to keep the body functioning. Around 2,000 years ago, the Roman Emperor Caligula, known for his eccentricities, appointed his horse Incitatus as consul of Rome. It is said that he even built him a palace and provided him with a staff of servants. This act was likely satire meant to ridicule the Roman Senate, rather than a sign of madness. Soccer player Ronaldinho once lost a sponsorship contract with Coca-Cola that paid him 600,000 euros per year, simply because he attended a press conference holding a Pepsi. None of the members of the Beatles knew how to read music. Music was a process of discovery for them and did not involve any books. They developed their songs by ear, experimenting with melodies and harmonies in the studio, which contributed to their unique style. Despite this, they worked with producers and musicians who did understand music theory to better bring their ideas to life. Hurricanes rotate in different directions depending on which side of the equator they are on. In the northern hemisphere, they rotate counterclockwise, while in the southern hemisphere, they rotate clockwise. This happens because of the Coriolis effect, which influences the movement of large masses of air on the planet. Before humans discovered how to smelt and work iron ore, some weapons made from iron already existed. This iron came from meteorites, also known as siderites. In the city of Dubai, a coral reef was successfully relocated for the first time to save it from nearby land development. The project cost nearly $10 million, but was completely successful. The tree species Ginkgo biloba is more than 270 million years old. It is one of the oldest trees, is almost never susceptible to pests, and is the only living organism known to have survived the Hiroshima nuclear bomb. To showcase the power of the Nintendo GameCube console when it was launched, they presented a demo featuring 128 Mario models rendered in real time performing different activities. It never became a video game, but the technology was used to create the game Pikmin. In the city of Utqiagvik in Alaska, half of a watermelon can cost almost $37, because transporting tropical fruits to such a remote location is extremely difficult. The Roman Emperor Antoninus Pius had the most peaceful reign of any leader in antiquity. During his time as emperor, which lasted 23 years starting in the year 138, there were no conflicts. He was recognized for his effective style of governance. Since the end of the Second World War, Canada has been naming thousands of previously unnamed lakes after fallen soldiers. According to estimates, there are more than 800,000 lakes in that country, and thousands still do not have names. Sweden was the first nation to declare it illegal to hit a child as a form of punishment, known as corporal punishment, in 1979. Since then, many other countries in Europe have also instituted this ban, as well as New Zealand and some countries in Africa and the Americas. Coca-Cola has produced more than 3,500 different types of beverages. That means if you drank one per day, it would take you more than 9 years to try them all. This wide variety includes soft drinks, juices, water, energy drinks, and teas, adapted to different markets around the world, where the company adjusts flavors and products according to the cultural preferences of each region. In the Caribbean, there are oysters that can climb trees. But it is all an illusion. In reality, they get stuck in the trees when the currents are very high, making it seem as if they have those powers. This phenomenon is often seen in mangroves, where high tides can carry oysters and other mollusks up to the roots and trunks of trees. Cows have an extremely wide field of vision that allows them to see nearly 360 degrees around them. This is due to the placement of their eyes, which are located on the sides of their heads. Although they cannot see directly behind themselves, their peripheral vision is so strong that they can detect movement in almost their entire surroundings without moving their heads. Some hotels use RFID chips to track towels. The amount of money they save by preventing people from taking them home can reach thousands of dollars. On October 18, 1963, French scientists launched the first cat into space in a Véronique AGI No. 47 sounding rocket. The cat, named Félicette, was successfully recovered after a parachute descent. A wild pig in Australia once stole 18 beers from some campers, got drunk, and then fought a cow. The incident occurred at a remote campsite, and the animal, after consuming the drinks, showed erratic behavior before confronting nearby livestock. Baobab trees can store up to approximately 32,000 gallons of water in their trunk. They do this to survive droughts. Their trunks are thick and spongy, which allows them to absorb and store large amounts of water during the rainy season. Thanks to this adaptation, they can survive long periods without rainfall, and some specimens can live more than 1,000 years in the arid regions of Africa. In the movie Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the phone used by Cloud is a Panasonic P900, which was released alongside the film with an advertising campaign in Japan, and included a special Final Fantasy game exclusive to that phone. Jupiter's moon Io has something similar to tides, even though it has no water. These tides are made of rock. The gravity of Jupiter and its other moons causes its surface to move like waves the size of a 394-foot building. Hummingbirds have such a fast metabolism that they need to be eating constantly. In just a few hours, they can run out of energy to fly. There are nearly the same number of people in the Tokyo metropolitan area as in the entire country of Canada. It is illegal, except in extreme circumstances, to neuter your dog in Norway. They believe in social sterilization and training. The law seeks to prioritize animal welfare, considering that surgical intervention without medical justification is not necessary. Instead, owner education and behavioral control are promoted to avoid problems such as aggression or unwanted reproduction. The card of the famous mobster Al Capone said that he was a used furniture salesman. During the Prohibition era in the United States, Capone maintained a facade of legitimate businesses to justify his wealth, while in reality, he ran a huge network of alcohol smuggling, illegal gambling, and other criminal activities. The chimichanga is a dish made from a flour tortilla filled and fried. It is like a fried burrito. There are 2 restaurants in the United States that claim to have created it. However, the origin of the word and the dish is believed to date back to the early 20th century, when Chinese immigrants in Sonora made chun kung using Sonoran-style flour tortillas. At the 2012 World Shooting Championship, one of the gold medal winners was Maria Dmitrienko from Kazakhstan. At the award ceremony, the national anthem of that country was not available, so it was downloaded from YouTube and played. They did not realize it was the parody version from the movie Borat. The winner had to listen to it all the way through. Paris has only one stop sign. Every intersection in Paris is basically a free-for-all where you enter at your own risk. In reality, traffic is mainly regulated with traffic lights, right-of-way rules, and roundabouts, where drivers follow well-established rules. The scarcity of stop signs is due to the fact that the French road system prioritizes other smoother forms of control to avoid unnecessary stops. Studies show that just 1 week of outdoor camping with only natural light is enough to reset the body's biological clock to normal sleep rhythms. In other words, if you have trouble falling asleep, just go camping. In 1970, a thief was captured in Zurich, Switzerland, when he forgot his finger at the crime scene after accidentally cutting it on glass. The finger was used by the police to identify his fingerprints. The original patent for the fire hydrant was lost in a fire, which creates a certain irony. The inventor George Smith registered it, but the complete file was destroyed in the United States Patent Office fire of 1836. Despite this setback, Smith is recognized as the inventor of the first hydrant, although others also contributed to the development of the modern design. To keep the story of the final season of Game of Thrones secret, the directors had to film fake scenes so curious onlookers and even the actors and extras themselves would leak them, and they even used anti-drone weapons. During World War II, a campaign was launched encouraging housewives to donate excess fat and oils left over from cooking to the United States Army to produce explosives. After Hurricane Katrina, the Emir of Qatar donated $100 million to help rebuild homes, hospitals, and schools. He visited the area a few years after the disaster to check on its progress. During the First Gulf War, the British Broadcasting Corporation banned songs that had the word bang in the title, since it resembled the onomatopoeia of a gunshot. Some squirrels hang mushrooms they find in order to preserve them during the winter, similar to how jerky is made. This also helps other food they store last longer without spoiling. Russian billionaire Vasily Klyukin wanted hospitals to be more welcoming, so he designed one that resembles a luxury yacht called White Sails Hospital, which a Tunisian businessman plans to build in the next 15 years. Watching fire for a period of time improved brain functions such as memory and problem-solving ability in ancient humans. They greatly enjoyed sitting around fires. An automotive safety organization pressured the creators of the first Batman television series to have the main characters wear seatbelts every time they entered the Batmobile. This was done to set a good example. BMX cyclist Matt Hoffman has suffered more than 100 concussions and has undergone 16 surgeries for injuries during his career. He is known for his toughness and unusual tolerance for pain. Studying the earwax of a blue whale can tell scientists the story of its life. The technique described in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences can be used as a tool to understand the hormonal and chemical biography of the whale. It can also be a window into how pollutants, discontinued long ago, can still permeate the environment today. We generally do not think foods are too sweet until our bones stop growing. This is why children tend to like sweets much more than adults. This is because during childhood, the body requires more energy for growth, which influences a greater preference for intense flavors like sweetness. In addition, with age, taste receptors and sensory perception change, making adults more sensitive to excess sugar. When dinosaurs inhabited Earth, days lasted only 22 hours. Each century, days become 17 milliseconds longer due to the slowing of Earth's rotation. In New York City, there are more than 2,000 pizzerias and thousands of restaurants that sell pizza, which makes it one of the cities with the greatest concentration of pizza in the world. It is estimated that New Yorkers consume more than 1 million slices every day, and New York-style pizza is characterized by its thin, flexible crust that is easy to fold. Passenger pigeons were once the most abundant birds in the world. Their flocks were so large and numerous that they could darken the sky wherever they passed. However, due to hunting, the species became extinct in 1914. Liquid helium has no viscosity, which allows it to pass through microscopic holes. It can literally pass through walls like a ghost. Pineapples were considered a status symbol in the 18th century. They were seen as a symbol of wealth and power, and in England, people could rent one for a night to show off to guests at parties. The wood frog can survive frozen for up to 6 months thanks to a process called cryoprotection. During the winter, its metabolism stops, and it accumulates glucose in its tissues, preventing damage. When spring arrives, it thaws and resumes activity without suffering negative effects. The first time chewing gum with added sugar for flavor was sold was in 1869, and it was marketed by a dentist named William Sample. The California grizzly bear was designated as the official animal of the state of California in 1953, more than 30 years after the last one was killed. It was also honored on the state flag. In the 19th century, a tax collector in Germany with the last name Doberman also ran a dog kennel. Since he considered his job dangerous, he set out to create a new type of dog to protect him. This is how Doberman dogs came to be. Once, a convicted man named Eric James, who had been sentenced to 30 years in prison, submitted a request to extend his sentence to 33 years. This was so it would match the jersey number of National Basketball Association player Larry Bird. His request was approved. New Zealand does not have a single land snake, but it occasionally receives visits from sea snakes. This is due to its geographic isolation and strict biosecurity laws that have prevented the introduction of many species. The sea snakes that arrive are usually carried by warm currents, and although some are venomous, encounters with humans are extremely rare. The Tesla Model S not only achieved top safety ratings, but also helped redefine how modern cars are designed. Thanks to its low center of gravity from the batteries and its reinforced structure, it offers exceptional protection in collisions. According to studies, 4 families in Iceland possess genes that are only found in Native Americans. This suggests that Vikings likely brought a woman from America to that country about 1,000 years ago. In Japan, there are very few female sushi chefs. This is due to an old belief that women have warmer hands because of normal hormonal changes, which would cause sushi not to be at an optimal temperature. However, this is changing, and there are more and more women entering the profession. The Colorado-based company Apollo Peak has created a wine for cats. It does not actually contain alcohol and is made from catnip with beetroot to give it that red wine color. It comes in flavors such as Pinot Meow and Moscato. Single-serving bottles cost $5, and 8-ounce bottles cost $12. 1 out of every 20 people has an extra pair of ribs. This condition is known as a cervical rib and appears in the upper part of the rib cage near the neck. In many cases, it does not cause problems, and the person may not even know they have it, although in some people it can compress nerves or blood vessels. A study conducted in 1993 showed that the maximum power a horse can generate is 18,000 watts, which is approximately equal to 24 horsepower. This confirms that James Watt, who invented the unit of horsepower in the 18th century, miscalculated when estimating a horse's strength to compare it with the energy of a steam engine. During his trip to the Galapagos Islands in 1835, Charles Darwin took a 5-year-old tortoise that they named Harriet. This tortoise lived 176 years until 2006 and spent its final years in Australia with the family team of Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. Ancient Greeks and Romans believed that the basil plant could only grow if you shouted and cursed while planting the seeds. You can buy a fan just for your armpits. The Japanese device manufacturer Thanco has developed the unusual Waki no Shitakura, which in Japanese means device for cooling under the armpit. It is a small battery-powered fan that clips onto your sleeve to send cool air to your armpits for 5 to 9 hours. But if that is not enough, you can plug it into your computer or a battery pack. In 2014, an entrepreneur named Mochi Sung developed facial recognition software for cats. It is intended to help cats maintain their ideal weight by recognizing their faces and tracking their food intake. Nobody likes a fat kitty. Planet Earth is traveling through space at approximately 67,000 miles per hour. This speed corresponds to the movement of the Earth around the Sun while completing 1 orbit each year. At the same time, the entire solar system is also moving around the center of the galaxy at an even greater speed, which means we are actually traveling through space much faster than it seems. Cats sleep an average of between 12 and 16 hours a day. This amount of sleep is due to their nature as hunters, since they are more active during dawn and dusk. Some cats, especially younger or older ones, may sleep even longer. In the 1980s, Lego made bricks out of 14-karat gold and gave them to employees who had worked more than 25 years in their factories. Today, these collector pieces are valued at more than $15,000. Actors who have tattoos that will be visible on camera must have a contract from their tattoo artist allowing them to be shown. This arose after Mike Tyson was sued by the person who made his face tattoo after it appeared in a movie. Since 1996, Harold Hackett from Prince Edward Island, Canada, has thrown 4,871 messages in a bottle into the ocean and has received 3,100 replies. That is a response rate of 63.6%. In 2008, as part of a fundraising effort, Father Adelir de Carli from Brazil tied 1,000 balloons to a chair in an attempt to break the world record for the longest time flying with balloons. Unfortunately, winds pushed him off course and he lost contact with land. Sadly, he was found dead at sea weeks later. While filming the terrible movie Super Mario Bros., Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, who played Mario and Luigi, were so depressed by how the filming was turning out that they sometimes arrived drunk to film their scenes. Our solar system has a wall, the heliopause. It is the region of space where the solar wind is no longer hot enough to repel the particle wind coming from distant stars. It is considered the boundary between the solar system and interstellar space. This frontier is located about 120 astronomical units from the sun. There are cheese producers who paint their product yellow to make it appear higher quality. This deceptive practice has existed since the 17th century. Fortunately, there are now food regulatory agencies. In Denmark, it is illegal to burn the flag of any country except Denmark's own flag. In Finland, there are 187,888 lakes. Because of this enormous number of bodies of water, the country is known as the Land of a Thousand Lakes. Many of them were formed at the end of the last ice age when the retreat of glaciers left thousands of depressions in the terrain that filled with water. It has been observed that some crocodiles use waves to move faster over several miles by taking advantage of ocean currents, allowing them to discover new habitats where there may potentially be more food. So you could say that crocodiles like to surf. The farthest distance a human has ever traveled was approximately 249,000 miles. This occurred when the 3 astronauts of the Apollo 13 mission had an emergency and looped around the moon before managing to return to Earth in 1970. The Nazca civilization of Peru, which existed more than 1,000 years ago, collapsed and disappeared in a short period of time. It is believed this was due to deforestation carried out to make way for agriculture, which triggered severe flooding. Greenland allows its inmates great freedoms as part of its open prison system, designed to rehabilitate prisoners. Inmates are allowed to leave the facilities during the day to work or study, and even go hunting with rifles. Believe it or not, some of them even have the key to their own cell. The youngest person to reach the summit of Mount Everest is Jordan Romero from the United States, who achieved it in 2010 at 13 years old. The youngest woman to do it is the Nepali Mingkhipa Sherpa, who reached the summit at 15 years old in 2003. The Books of Magic is a comic book miniseries written by Neil Gaiman in 1990 that introduces Timothy Hunter, a young boy with the potential to become the most powerful magician in the world. The series presents obvious parallels with Harry Potter, such as both protagonists being English teenagers with glasses and a pet owl. Both franchises belong to Warner, which is why there are no conflicts. 100 years ago, people spent more money on clothing than they do now. Surprisingly, on average, 17% of their income was allocated to buying outfits, and they took fashion more seriously than we think. The ugliest animal in the world is the blobfish, a deep-sea fish that can live between 1,968 and 3,937 feet underwater. This is due to its lack of flesh and muscle structure, and it only becomes gelatinous when it is out of the water. Uranium, an element that was discovered in 1789, was named after the planet Uranus, which had also been discovered recently. The German chemist Martin Heinrich Klaproth identified this element while analyzing a mineral called pitchblende and decided to name it in honor of the planet discovered a few years earlier by the astronomer William Herschel. George Koval was a Soviet spy who infiltrated the Manhattan Project. He gained access to secret laboratories and stole key information about nuclear weapons. His work allowed the Soviet Union to develop its atomic bomb much earlier than expected. Incredibly, his identity as a spy was not discovered until 2002, decades after he had changed the global nuclear balance. Elvis Presley won only 3 Grammy Awards during his entire career, even though he had 18 #1 hits. In contrast, the artist with the most awards is Georg Scholti, the conductor of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, who has 31. The word corgi comes from Welsh and literally translates as dwarf dog. It is made up of 2 parts, cor, meaning dwarf, and gi, meaning dog. Despite their size, corgis are known for their energy and bravery. Samuel L. Jackson insisted on using a purple lightsaber in Star Wars. It was one of his conditions for accepting the role of Mace Windu. The actor personally asked George Lucas for a different color so that his character could be easily distinguished in battle scenes, especially during large fights with mini Jedi. The word electrocute comes from the combination of electro and execute, which means death by electric shock. Originally, the term was used strictly to describe a death caused by electricity, although over time, its use has expanded colloquially to any electric shock, even when it is not fatal. The youngest athlete to win an Olympic medal is gymnast Dimitrios Lundras, who finished 3rd in a gymnastics event at the 1896 Olympic Games when he was only 10 years old. In 2020, Hen Zaza from Syria was going to become the youngest athlete to participate in the Olympic Games. However, Tokyo 2020 was postponed. One of the deadliest earthquakes in history occurred in Shanxi, China on January 23, 1556, killing an estimated 830,000 people. It was later revealed that the magnitude of the quake was approximately 8 to 8.3, which is not even close to the strongest tremor recorded. But the earthquake occurred in the middle of an unfortunately densely populated area with poorly constructed buildings and homes. New Mercedes-Benz cars have a special mechanism that plays a white noise sound just before an imminent crash. This causes the ears to block, which can prevent damage caused by the sound of the airbags or the crash itself. The first movie to feature a main character created with digital effects was Casper the Friendly Ghost in 1995. The digital work was done by the company Industrial Light and Magic. In 1903, Massachusetts and Missouri were the first states to require a driver's license, although it was not necessary to pass a test to obtain one. At that time, the number of automobiles was still low, so regulations were minimal. Over time, the increase in traffic and accidents led to the implementation of stricter practical and theoretical exams across the country. NASA engineers were having problems with thermal insulation while building the Saturn V rocket, so they asked for help from people who practiced surfing, since they had experience using the same honeycomb-type insulating material. Peacock flounders are masters of camouflage and can match the color of a chessboard if placed on one. This phenomenon is due to special cells called chromatophores that allow them to quickly change color and pattern to adapt to their environment, helping them avoid predators and surprise their prey. In the Svalbard Global Seed Vault in Norway, there are more than 20,000 marijuana seeds, so this plant will be able to survive the apocalypse. This vault, built inside a mountain in the Arctic, functions as a global backup to preserve seeds of important crops and protect the genetic diversity of plants from natural disasters or global crises. Composer John Williams is the living person with the most Academy Award nominations in history. He has received more than 50 nominations, surpassed only by Walt Disney, who received 59. Of those, he has won 5, the most recent in 1993 for the score of Schindler's List. In July 2016, some monks from Prince Edward Island, Canada, traveled across the island buying up to 600 pounds of lobsters just to release them back into the ocean. The purpose was to cultivate compassion for lobsters and for all beings. The highest flying bird in the world is the Ruppel's vulture. There is confirmed evidence of one flying at an altitude of 37,073 feet above sea level, during which it collided with an airplane. This record was obtained in 1973, when the bird was found in an engine after the impact, demonstrating its incredible ability to withstand extremely low oxygen levels and very cold temperatures at altitudes close to those of commercial aircraft cruising levels. The singer Lana Del Rey said that feminism is not an interesting concept for her. It is even boring. She said she is more interested in things like the growth of SpaceX and Tesla and what will happen with our intergalactic possibilities. Switzerland stands out for its high recycling rates, reaching between 66 and 96% recovery of recyclable materials. This achievement is due to policies such as the mandatory use of official garbage bags for waste collection, encouraging this practice. During his time as an actor before becoming president, Ronald Reagan was an informant who sent information to the Federal Bureau of Investigation about other actors if he suspected they were involved in subversive activities. In a city in Australia, there is a submarine on display in a park, and to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Beatles' visit to that place, people covered the entire submarine with yellow knitted yarn squares. Author Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, was the first host of Shark Week. In later years, Mythbusters star Adam Savage, Dirty Jobs host Mike Rowe, late-night host Craig Ferguson, and former Saturday Night Live star Andy Samberg have taken on the role. Due to disputes and a back injury sustained while filming one of the scenes, Tobey Maguire was close to not appearing in the movie Spider-Man 2. He was going to be replaced by actor Jake Gyllenhaal. While filming Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol, Tom Cruise vandalized the tallest building in the world. He climbed to the top of the Burj Khalifa and wrote the name of his then-wife, Katie Holmes, on the spire. How awkward that is now. In reality, the scene was part of a controlled filming with strict safety measures and no real damage to the building. A gallon of McDonald's sauce that was 20 years old was sold for $10,000 simply because it was a special edition that had the name of basketball player Michael Jordan on it. The dodo bird became extinct, or rather, we drove it to extinction, only 80 years after it was discovered. This flightless bird lived on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean and disappeared in the 17th century after the arrival of humans, who introduced invasive animals and hunted the species quickly. Despite the famous slogan, technically diamonds are not forever. Eventually, they degrade and turn into graphite, but we're talking about millions of years. The first rap song to reach #1 on the Billboard charts was Rapture by Blondie, sung by lead vocalist Debbie Harry. It was also the first rap video to appear on MTV. Once, Paris Hilton bought her dogs a house worth $325,000. It had 2 floors and contained designer furniture. That house cost more than the global average price of a large 2-story house with 5 bedrooms. The band Smash Mouth wrote the song All Star as a response to all the letters they received from fans who were bullied at school and by their siblings for liking the band. Later, the song became known worldwide through the soundtrack of Shrek. To build many buildings in theme parks, a technique called forced perspective is used. As the structure goes higher, it becomes smaller, making it appear taller than it really is when people look at it from below. Athletes from Kuwait are not allowed to compete under their country's flag in the Olympic Games due to government laws that allow interference in sports organization elections. Athletes compete under the Olympic flag instead. 8% of human DNA is made up of ancient viruses that infected humans thousands and even millions of years ago. The energy drink Red Bull was created in Thailand in 1976 and was made specifically for truck drivers so they would not fall asleep on the road.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.